Alright, my friends, I promise this is not clickbait. You read the title. The Chaos Space Marine Demon Prince with Wings very well may be one of the best models in the entire game, and no one knows about this thing as far as I'm aware. Let's get into this because if you can't tell by my tone, I am very excited to tell you guys about this one. Hello and welcome back to Theory Hammer, my fellow 40k theorists, and today I want to talk to you guys and gals about a little known unit called the Chaos Space Marine Demon Prince with Wings. This thing rocks. I've been excited to make this video for a while, and I'm not sure if anyone's covered this thing yet. I'm sure like someone somewhere has, but today it's going to be me covering it because this thing is amazing, and I've had to face it a few times. Now, I've said before in a couple other videos, I hate Chaos Space Marines. I sold mine years ago, but that doesn't mean we're not going to cover some of their good units. So we're not wasting any time here. Thunderhammer that like and subscribe button, hit Nurgle's bell, leave a comment, check out the other videos, and check out the second channel, which is linked below. Alright, Demon Prince with Wings. What makes this thing so outrageous, and why have you never heard of it? Well, mainly because the amount of nonsense you can slap on this thing really only exists in the Pact-Bound Zealots detachment. And not only is that detachment overlooked, when you do take it, the prince himself is always overlooked. So that works for me. Lets me be one of the few people to break the news of how completely insane this thing is. So let me just bring up the data sheet here, and we'll go over it. And then we'll talk about the detachment itself and how that lends it to even more nonsense and some of the strats that you can use. So what do we got here? Well, we move 12 inches. We're toughness 9. We do have a 2-up save, which is pretty good. We have 10 wounds. We're leadership 6, just like all Chaos Space Marine and Space Marine stuff, always leadership 6. And we're OC 3, a pretty high OC value for a model like this. We do also have a 4-up invulnerable save. We have a gun. It's just a heavy bolter without sustained and hits on 2s. It's 24 inches as well, so it's not exactly a heavy bolter, but a strength 5 AP 1, 2 damage, 3 shots. And then for our melee weapons, we have 6 attacks. Of course, we're hitting on 2s with everything. Strength 8, AP 2, flat 3 damage, and that's a nice commodity to have. If you do want to sweep, you get 14 attacks at strength 6, AP 0, 1 damage. Not great. For our abilities, we have Deadly Demise D3 and Deep Strike, and then of course we're Dark Pacting. And then for our actual datasheet abilities, we have Demonic Destruction. Each time this model ends a charge move, select one enemy unit within engagement range of it and roll 1d6 for each of this model's remaining wounds. For each 4+, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound to a maximum of 6. And then you have Flying Horror. Each time this model ends a normal or advanced move, select one enemy unit and moved over during that move. That unit must take a battle shock test. Ugh. Then we have our Demonic Allegiance. When you select this model to include in your army, you must select one of the keywords below. Until the end of the battle, this model has that keyword and the characteristic modifier stated for that keyword below. For Khorne, you add 2 to the strength characteristic of its combat. For Tzeentch, you add 3 to the attack characteristic of its infernal cannon. For Nurgle, you add 1 to the toughness, and then for Slaanesh, you add 2 to the move characteristic. It's 180 points base. It's a monster that flies, it's a character that's chaos, it's got the demon keyword, and it has its own keyword, which is Demon Prince with Wings. Okay, so pretty straightforward. It's a Demon Prince. Not amazing, not bad, does mortals and stuff, cool. Okay, now let's launch its power level into space with some combos. First things first, you give it the Mark of Slaanesh. This takes it from a 12-inch move to a 14-inch move. And then you take the Intoxicating Elixir enhancement on it, which gives it a 5-up feel no pain, and strangely, a battle shock ability that I actually like. Each time this model shoots or fights after it finishes making those attacks, it basically makes you take a battle shock test. He has a gun, he has combat, and so that combines with the battle shock ability on his datasheet in the movement phase. So now it flies over you, and it makes you take a battle shock test. Then it shoots its gun at you, and it makes you take a battle shock test. Then it charges you, and then it makes you take a battle shock test. If you guys are new here, then you know very well how much I fucking hate battle shock abilities. But like, this thing makes you take 3 of them, and at that point, that is a great ability, because you increase the odds of making a unit fail by 3 times. And what does this mean? It means OC 0 and no strats. So that right there is just a lot of utility. Theoretically, see what I did there? You could battle shock 3 different units. One when it flies over, one when it shoots, one that it hits in combat. I'm not afraid of one battle shock test most of the time, but when I have to take 3 of them, yeah, I'm likely going to fail that test. Especially if it's on the same unit. This means no Armor of Contempt, no Overwatch, no breaking in. It just means you're a unit of dudes and that's it. And so that takes its first ability to the extreme when you take an Intoxicating Elixir. And then the Elixir also gives you a 5-up Feel No Pain, which mathematically is about equivalent to like 14 wounds instead of 10. And then remember that we do have a 2-up save and a 4-up invuln. Like, in what world is 4 extra wounds on a Toughness 9 model that already has 10 wounds costing 15 points? Apparently this one, I guess. Plus the battleship stuff that it gives you. It's just ridiculous. So it's all pretty good. But wait, there is more. Like we saw on the datasheet, this thing has an inbuilt tank shock. So you roll d6 for each wound that it has left, so hopefully 10 d6. And each 4+ is a mortal wound. Let's just analyze this for a second. This lets you do a variety of things depending on the situation that you find yourself in. Namely, it just adds an extra 5 wounds to the target that he charges. That alone is worth it, and as we all know, tank shock is great. Second, this activates on things before anything swings. So if you have a fights first unit, it takes 5 mortals, maybe even more because it does max at 6, before it even gets to swing. And then third, this can clear things out of the way, like screens. Oh, you got a wall? No problem. 5 to 6 mortal wounds, screen gone, pile into the thing I care about, swing. Oh, and then hey, for fun, take a battle shock test. Not sold yet? Okay, I wouldn't be either. Thankfully, I am nowhere near done. Let's take a look at what the detachment gives you. If we are Slaanesh, which we are, then we get crits on 5 in combat. So that's 7 hits. And this math is pretty easy. With 6 attacks, one of them is going to be every single number. So one will be a 1, one will be a 5, one will be a 6. So we get 5 hits. The 5 and 6s are extra. So 5 plus 2 is 7. That's 7 hits at flat 3 damage. And remember that we already did 5 mortal wounds on the way in. And if you have Abaddon nearby, you're looking at like 8 or 9 hits. At AP2, flat 3 damage. After doing 5 mortals, while being stupid and having a 2-up save, a 4-up invuln, and a 5-up Feel No Pain. So overall, very good damage output. With Abaddon nearby, that's like 4 to 5 dead Terminators, like on the high end. 5 mortal wounds, maxing at 6, could actually just straight up destroy 2 of them right off the bat. Each one of them's flat 3 damage, so each failed save is another dead Terminator. But I really want to emphasize that this model is not one of the best models in the game because of its damage output or its durability. It's a combination of all these things. The utility of battle shocking 3 times a turn, the speed that this thing can move, the durability it has, the output it has with little tricks like being able to clear screens with its tank shock, etc. All at 195 points when we include the enhancement. But before I get off topic, let's just go over the strats for Pack Bound. At least the ones that are useful on this guy. The first one would be Eternal Hate. This is probably the worst strat on him. Not even probably, it is the worst strat on him. It gives him a 4-up fight on death. Not much to say here. I would just figure I would mention that it existed. Then we have Skin Shift. This allows the prince to regain 3 lost wounds. It's not D3, it's flat 3. So if you don't get him down, he'll regain like 33% of his total wounds, which have a Feel No Pain now. So that goes a long way with his tank shock ability since it's based on how many wounds he already has. And let me just tell you, this is annoying because the right way to use this thing is in a way where he doesn't have a lot that can retaliate against him. And I'll get to that just a bit later when I tell you how to use him. But generally speaking, this stratagem just adds insult to injury. We then have Torpifying Refrain. This unit can fall back and charge. Unless it's Slaanesh, in which case it can fall back, shoot and charge, or advance and shoot and charge. This means that you can shoot your gun at something if you need to advance and force a battle shock test, and then obviously because you're advancing, you're able to charge, and so you already move 14 inches, and when you fly over something, you make it take a battle shock test. Then we have the last one, which is Festering Miasma. It's okay on the prince, but it makes him even more durable to shooting by giving him stealth. So now we can be -1 to hit with a 2-up save, with a 4-up invuln, and a 5-up Feel No Pain, with 10 wounds that we can regenerate. In a spot where not a whole lot of powerful things should be, also known as your backfield. So how do you use him in-game? There's a couple of ways. You can either start him on the table, or you can keep him in reserve, and most of the time, you're going to want to keep him in reserve, because this guy has Deep Strike, and so with Rapid Ingress, he comes down somewhere out of line of sight, and then he uses a strat to advance and shoot and charge, moves over something, makes it take a battle shock test, shoots at something, makes it take a battle shock test, then charges something, does 5 mortal wounds, swings, gets an average of 7 hits at AP2 flat 3 damage, and then makes you take a battle shock test. It's just so fucking good, dude. And then it's on turn 3 usually, so he's generally just going to be really hard to deal with at that point, because there's other shit that you have to deal with, like Accursed Cultists, Abaddon, Vindicators, Chosen, Possessed, all that kind of stuff that's flying towards you from their end. Now you have a Demon Prince in your backfield as well. And then when you do try to deal with him, you need to have like the exact right tools to do so, because again, he ain't no slouch. Toughness 9 with 10 wounds, 2 up save, 4 up invuln, 5 up feel no pain. And even when you do get his wounds down, if he lives, he just regains 3 wounds. It is so good for doing things like behind enemy lines and capture enemy outpost, among other things. But most people don't have a whole lot of things going on in their backfield. You know, maybe it's like 5 infiltrators, or maybe it's like a guard unit, maybe it's a recruit unit. Generally, there isn't a whole lot in the backfield, and the things that are there aren't all that tanky or crazy. All the other stuff went up to participate in the battle, and since it's turn 3, things have died. And when you find yourself on turn 3 with this thing in your deployment zone, what do? Do you just ignore him? Or do you backtrack and commit forces backward to try to deal with him? This is the decision that he forces your opponent to make, and overwatching him is just not an option. He's just too durable. And so he is going to come down somewhere safe if you're playing against a good player. I mean, he does have a Dreadnought base, so he's not very big. He is going to advance and go at least 15 inches from where you placed him, and he is going to charge something. And that something is likely going to be in your backfield somewhere. All the while causing 3 battle shock tests and doing 5 mortals on the way in. As with all units, this takes some finesse to play correctly. He does not just come down in the middle of the table and try to help out. He comes down and then he flies super far and wreaks havoc in your backfield where most of your good units are not. And so I do encourage you to play a game against this thing. It's completely ridiculous, and you really just have to see it to understand. So I hope I did a good job there of kind of hyping it up, because it really, really is one of the best models in the entire game. It's 195 points with the enhancement. That's crazy for what it does. And let's just summarize. Toughness 9, 10 wounds, 2 up save, 4 up invuln, 5 up feel no pain. Moves 14 inches. Makes you take a battle shock test when it flies over you. Makes you take a battle shock test when it shoots you. Makes you take a battle shock test when it fights you. All in the same turn. Does 5 mortals on average on the charge, which can either just add to its output or can clear screens so that you can pile into something that you care about. Gets crits on 5s in combat, that's an average of 7 hits, strength 8, AP 2, flat 3 damage, has access to advance and shoot and charge or fall back and shoot and charge, has access to regain 3 wounds, has access to -1 to hit, is 195 points. It's literally one of the best models in the entire game, guys, like straight up. For its points, what it can do when you know your strats is just absolutely ludicrous, and when you play it right, it's practically impossible to deal with, and it makes your opponent have to make hard decisions. Do you go backward and protect the backfield and possibly fail to kill it like I have? Or do you ignore it and let it ravage everything and then cost you points? And usually you have to overcommit to kill this thing because of the feel no pain and the invulns. Those can sometimes spike, and you know that when you have like just enough to get it done mathematically, that they will spike and you won't actually have enough. We've all been there, because that's just how it goes sometimes. Then it's going to live, it's going to regain wounds, and it's just going to wreak havoc all over again. And it can affect multiple things in a turn because of its tank shock and because of its ability to battle shock 3 different units, or 3 times on the same unit if you really need it. It's just amazing in every single way.
By himself, he's just a good unit, and you know, if he was on the table flying around and helping out, he'd be a good unit. But in that situation, there are other things that you can take instead. This build of him is designed to be used as like target saturation and to force the opponent to make impossible choices. When you have something that can do as much as he can and can affect the whole board like he can, he starts to become very hard to deal with. I feel like I need to set the stage for you, and I'll do my best not to explain the entire game in order to give this anecdote some context, but I played a test game against Chaos after facing this thing a few times. I was playing Votann, I went second. On my second turn, I pushed up very far with multiple units to deny good positions to the Prince, like the positions that I usually find him in and that I just showed you on those terrain screenshots there. Doing so meant that I had to keep some of my backfield open though. And I only have so many units. It's turn 2, so I'd lost a little bit of stuff at that stage, and it's just generally hard to cover everything when the entire point of the game is to move up and to get objectives in the midboard. You know what I mean? So I moved up as much as I could, and I brought down 10 Terminators, so Einhyr Hearthguard, near my backfield, with the thought of like, okay, sure, there's a gap here, but it's bait, basically. If you come down here with Rapid Ingress, you're taking 10 Einhyr to the face. And if you guys haven't seen my video breakdown on them, yeah, they're fucking gross to basically like any target, as long as that target has 2 Judgment tokens. That's the key here. So the, quote-unquote mistake, if you want to call it that, is that I did not put any Judgment tokens on the Prince at the start of the game. I mean, like, why would I? Every time I've faced something like this, it's always hit me first, and if that's the case, it's going to start collecting Judgment tokens on its own. So putting them there seemed like a kind of a waste, and I think it was still the right call, all things considered. So basically, what I had done here is I blocked out all the walls in my backfield, and I had a land fortress between the gaps of the 2 walls so that nothing could charge the 10 Terminators that were behind them, because that's where I deep struck them, was like kind of back there. And we're playing in Terrain Layout 1 for Pariah Nexus on, I think it was Crucible of Battle Deployment Zone. I knew the Accursed Cultists were coming in hot on his turn 3, and that's why I blocked off the walls, giving them basically only 1 land fortress as the target of their charge, knowing that if he consolidated after destroying it, if he destroyed it, that he'd be consolidating into some guys that'd be able to swing back, and then I have a strat to fall back and shoot, so that unit was just gonna get deleted. So it's my turn 2. I block off a bunch of shit. I bring my Terminators down, and just so you guys know, if I had waited until turn 3 to bring my guys down, their Deep Strike would have been pushed even further back, because I knew he was gonna have a Cursed Cultist there. I kind of figured his Prince was coming down somewhere. There was other stuff that was like around, so I just wanted to get them on the table as soon as I can. So the Prince rapid ingresses into the gap that I left there on purpose. So I'm like, cool. I go and shoot the Prince, and I fail to get it down. I only get it down to 3 wounds. I destroyed like a Possessed squad that was kind of like around in my area, got rid of them, was able to take out a Vindicator with the Land Fortress, but I failed to kill this damn Demon Prince. And I shot it with an entire 10-man Terminator brick and a unit of Pioneers. Got him down to 3 wounds. On his turn, he heals 3 wounds. He flies over me slightly, kind of just does like a dupe, like a little nudge, makes me take a Battle Shock test, and I fail it, because Votann have terrible leadership. So he charges in, does 4 mortal wounds, killing 2 of the Terminators. So, he's got 6 wounds left, he rolls 6 dice, he rolled a little bit better than average, 4 of them were a 4+. My Terminators only have 2 wounds, so that brought down 2 of them right off the bat. He then swings and gets another 2 wounds, even though he's -1 to wound. He gets exactly 7 hits, so like I said earlier, you should get exactly 7 hits with his crits on 5s. Does the exact thing that I said. Only gets 3 wounds though, but I failed 2 of them because I only get a 4-up save because again, I was battle shocked, so no Armor of Contempt. On the other side of the Terminators, an entire unit of Accursed Cultists did like, it was crazy dude, they did like 24 wounds to a Land Fortress, and with some bad rolling on my part, and some pretty insane rolling on their part, they were able to destroy the Land Fortress even with Armor of Contempt up. Like, I just love rolling twice as many ones as I'm supposed to. It's awesome. But yeah, not the worst result ever. I kind of expected his Demolisher to do more than it did anyway, so the Land Fortress was going to die in my mind. But now I still have to deal with this damn Demon Prince for another turn, which I did, but it kept these 10 Terminators, well, 6 at this point, Terminators close to my backfield for an extra turn, which basically led to some other unfortunate events later on during the game. And that was the first time that I'd actually killed this Demon Prince in any game that I've played against it so far, and it still made me lose the game. And I didn't really have much of a choice there. If I bubbled out my backfield more, then the Prince would have been able to rapid ingress closer to the middle, because those units that would have been in my backfield wouldn't have been able to move up and push the Demon Prince's landing zone back. And if I had done this, the alternative is that the Prince is not in my backfield, and it's more centralized, which meant after some shooting from the Vindicator, the Prince's inbuilt tank shock may have actually just destroyed the Land Fortress before anything else swung, and that would have allowed the Accursed Cultist to pile into the Terminators that got out, and potentially even the 10-man unit that I just deep struck behind them, and that would have been bad. But I mean, after seeing the way the Land Fortress rolled, if that was the 10-man Terminators, I literally would have lost 8 of them, which is more or less the whole unit. So what I did, I think, in this situation anyway, I do believe it was the right call, even now, kind of reflecting on what happened. And that situation, if he was able to deep strike in the middle, it isn't any better. It's actually probably worse, because he would just do the exact same thing, just against different targets. Because again, there was still an accursed cultist unit bearing down on me, and my opponent is very good. And so like Abaddon and his 10 Chosen hadn't even come down the pike yet. So overall, it was a really, really close game. It was 74 to 73 to the Chaos, so they won by literally a single point. But they likely won because of that Demon Prince keeping those 10 Terminators in my backfield to deal with him.
And so probably a little bit of a shorter video here. I just wanted to get this out and just tell you guys how absolutely ridiculous this thing is. I really, really want you guys to play against one. And that's going to be it though, my friends. That's the Prince with Wings. There's very few units in this game that I come up against and I simply go, I can't deal with that. This is one of them. And it's one of them because of how it can be played. It always hits you first, always. And then once it's there, it's just really hard to get rid of. So I hope you guys and gals got something out of this episode. I already know what the comment section's going to say, but all I can say is just play against it first. And don't play against a bad player who's just going to throw it away. Play against a good player who rapid ingresses it, smashes a screen out of the way, and then charges into your backfield on turn 3 when you have very little left to really deal with it. Then come back here and tell me what you think. Now I'm honestly just kidding. All comments are welcome, and I greatly appreciate all my viewers here. If you guys liked the video though, thunderhammer that like and subscribe button, give Nurgle's Bell the same love, check out our other videos, and then check out my second channel as well. I've really enjoyed making those Let's Plays, so it'd be cool if people actually watch them. Either way, you guys rock my socks off. The only reason I keep doing this is because of all of you, so for the Dark Gods, theory hard, and I'll see you guys back at the lab.